social media decorum. Anytime an older person is telling a younger person about social media decorum, it usually ends with Herm.
Yes.
Don't press send. I mean that's
right
it.
here?
Because
Don't press send.
what are we going to say to your generation, Mike, about social media? I mean, we all say, hey, just don't hit send. And I think in a lot of cases we may be right, but guys are going to use social media. Mike Tomlin is not going to stop Antonio Brown from using social media. Now, there are ways you can use it in a smarter way, and he was going, this was more of a, that's the thing. A personal thing against somebody else becomes public to everybody. This was a personal thing about a guy in the PR staff, correct? Was it in the PR staff?
Former member of the PR staff.
Who tweeted something about Antonio Brown, which became public, and then he responds, which becomes public. So it's a personal one-on-one thing that becomes public, and if you're 2-0, not a whole lot gets made of it. When you're 0-1-1, it gets magnified to what we're talking about right now.
Yeah, there are all those levels to it, right? Certainly, as Tomlin said, it's a response to losing. That's something that the Pittsburgh Steelers and most teams don't respond well to, but it's also the content of it, right? Lots of players respond to criticism online, responding by saying, trade me, and then also not being in the building the next day kind of compounds it in a way that's unique to this situation. So you could say don't press send, but really, if you're going to press send, just don't do it in a way that invites actual football-related controversy.
You see, you're exactly right. If you take the sideline incident alone, no big deal. You take him responding to a criticism of somebody saying that Ben Roethlisberger made Antonio Brown. No big deal, really. But when you add that all together within a 2 or 3 day span, included which a day in which he did not show up at the facility, then it creates this fire where there maybe is or isn't something there, because now you're seeing a progression of events, right?
And people may be asking, well, that was Monday, today's Wednesday, what about Tuesday? Tuesday's a player's day off, so he didn't have to be at the facility. And for those that care about what an agent has to say, Antonio Brown's agent is Drew Rosenhaus, and he said the tweet was not in reference to anything other than Antonio responding to a person he knows. It was not directed toward a trade or wanting to be traded. It was a personal response to a former Steeler employee who insulted him. Any idea he was asking for a trade is not accurate, blah, 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 blah. So that's and we'll see. Said it was a personal issue. That's what Mike Tomlin said as well. Game plan day to day, I would highly expect him to be I would expect him to be there today, right? I don't think there's any doubt about that.
Yeah. I think this is going to be a pretty easy one to resolve. And that kind of leads to the larger point in all this, right? Is we just talked about the Patriots and Ian O'Connor's book and a lot made about the Patriots offseason and the way they always batten down the hatches. This Steelers team in a very different way is the same model. Like, the Steelers team has been overwhelmingly who they are, has had outspoken players in this locker room, has had instances whether it involved James Harrison's departure from the other year, whether it involved the Facebook Live situation coming out of the locker room the other year.
10,000 views.
10,000 views. All these things that have come up, all these things that we've made a big deal out of, the Steelers talking openly about facing the Patriots. What effect has it had?
Yeah.
They've been a playoff team deep in the playoffs the last 4 years, a double-digit win team the last 4 years. This team knows how to absorb this. This is who they are. And if the biggest blight on their resume is they can't beat the Patriots in the big game,
well, last year they couldn't beat the Jaguars at a home game in the divisional round.
Who just beat the Patriots, transitive property. But you can obviously being facetious, but you get in general, the Patriots have been this iteration of the Steelers hang-up. So if we really exclude that, which is understandable, the rest of this stuff, the Steelers have shown us time and time again they can handle.
It is, but again, I'd go back to the Steelers-Patriots game last year where the Steelers did everything except win the game. I mean, they did everything right except win the game, and it came down to critical plays in the last few seconds where you saw how the Patriots handled things as opposed to how the Steelers handled things at times. And now you get into, well, what is Antonio Brown really? Well, Ryan Clark, who does a great job with us now and obviously was a Steeler for a long time, had this to say about Antonio Brown.
Listen, the team is in a bad place. When your best football player is more focused on individual things, individual feelings and sensitivities than what's going on with the team that's really a sinking ship right now, it's a problem. I know Scrap very well. He worked for the Pittsburgh Steelers when I was there, and to think that he said something like that that touched Antonio in that way, it's kind of ridiculous to me. But here was what Antonio has to do. He has to focus on playing football. He's the best player on this team. He's the best player in that locker room. It needs to be more of a team mindset around there. But everything from Le'Veon Bell not coming in, to the offensive line firing shots at him, to now Antonio Brown being more concerned about what a former PR employee is saying about him, rather than focusing on what he needs to do to win games this week against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That's a problem.
Well, that's the bigger issue, right? Because they couldn't beat the Browns. They had to scramble back to make it a game after falling behind 21-0 to the Chiefs. And now they may play arguably the hottest team in football, the Tampa Bay Bucs, at home on Monday night. So all this is fine, but it's getting late early for Pittsburgh right now.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I'll say is with Antonio Brown, is this anything new to us? Is this anything that is surprising to us at this point with him and social media? I mean, this is the second time in 2 weeks. Didn't he apologize to one of our senior writers for they wrote an article about he's an Instagram all-pro and basically Antonio Brown threatened him and then went and apologized for it? I'm numb to Antonio Brown and social media. I really am. He is a great player on the field. I don't think he's very well liked in that locker room, but as I said, you don't have to be well liked in a locker room. But the one thing is, he's in the locker room. Unlike Le'Veon Bell, who's not in the locker room they're producing, he produces on the field. May not be singing Kumbaya with everybody, and he is going to press send. That is Antonio Brown. By the way, he's the best player on their team.
Yeah.
And he's the focal point of their offense, still leading the league in targets right now through 2 weeks of the season. So their intention has not changed.
No, it hasn't. And our own Jeremy Fowler, who does a great job covering the Steelers, likened him to Manny Ramirez and Manny being Manny. On some level, that's true, except I think Antonio has a better working grasp of the actual sport than sometimes Manny ever did. That's slightly different. But all this is, look, if they lose Monday night, it's only going to get worse. So winning is the ultimate deodorant, and right now the Steelers are in dire need of deodorant, and that is straight talk.